So this is the harmonic egg that I speak of all the time in all the shows. Just wanted to dedicate a show to the actual egg itself. It's about 7 feet tall. You can see the panels on the side. So it consists of eight 12 panel sections. So this is one section here. This is another section. So there's 12 panels going around, eight sections of 12 panels, which make up 96 panels, which in the inside of the egg translates into 96 different reflective surfaces that sound can bounce off of. So this is the inside, this is the chair. They're LED, non-LED emitting LEDs at the top. And at the bottom, there's a hexagon here platform that the chair sits on. Under the chair is a subwoofer. If you can see that, that vibrates under the chair. On either side, you have focal speakers. These are very high-end speakers. These are the same speakers you'll find in a lot of very high-end recording studios. They're very expensive. A pair of these can cost you about $5,000 actually in some high-end recording studios. But the design here is all based on Nikola Tesla's 369 ratio. So when you have these 96 reflective surfaces, there's your 9 and your 6. So it's like you can't get away from the 369 ratio when it comes to this. And having 96 different reflective surfaces in this shape, it's not really an egg. It's actually symmetrical, so it's more shaped like an actual football, actually. But when you have those 96 reflective surfaces, it creates amazing psychoacoustics. So certain sounds and certain frequencies will sound like they're coming from other places other than the actual speakers over here and the speaker over here. Sometimes the sound will sound like it's coming from here based on the frequency and how it reflects off of these surfaces. Um, and I have audio engineers who've been in here and they are just amazed with the psychoacoustics in here and how it can trick the ear into thinking sounds coming from different focal points throughout the egg. Beautiful, beautiful design, courtesy of Gail Lynn. She figured this out and figured out a way to have it built. So this is inside the harmonic egg, and we're gonna cut back to me giving you some more in-depth information about the egg and the science behind this and how it works with the body's energetic field. But I wanted to take some time just to show you the inside of this and actually what it looked like. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chromocymatics podcast. I want to welcome back all my subscribers, those who've been watching the videos and commenting and liking the videos. Welcome back, you guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Charles. I'm the host here, and I'm also the founder of Chromocymatics Wellness, which is where we practice all the things that I talk about here, and all the stories I talk about here. They're coming from that practice that I've been doing for the past 3 years or so. Today, the topic is the harmonic egg. We talk about that a lot in passing since the beginning of the podcast, but this is the time I'm going to take to actually talk about the technology. What you just saw was a brief tour of the outside and inside of the harmonic egg. And we're going to dive into just the inner workings of it and how this actually works. And I'm going to talk about today mostly the science behind the in-person sessions. We also offer remote sessions. I'm going to save that for another episode to talk about how the remote sessions work and what that's comprised of when it comes to just technology and the understanding of how energy works at a distance. So we'll put that in its own episode. Before I start, though, I want to just show you a few books that could help in this process. Usually, in the office, if I come up against somebody who's never heard of chakras, um, I usually kind of start with the Earth and the Earth's grid system, the magnetic lines of flux around the Earth, especially with guys. They tend to get that part of it when I start talking about vortexes and chakras on Earth and how we reflect that in our own bodies. And a good book to start. I don't know if you can get this book. You may still be able to get it. It's by Nigel Pinnock. I got this book years ago, probably in the 90s, called Geomancy. And this is about the magnetic ley lines around the Earth and the Earth's chakras and what they call places of power on the planet. That's where a lot of cathedrals are built. A lot of places of worship are on these places. A lot of major cities of power, are actually strategically placed on these grid lines or these ley line crossings that we call vortexes or minor vortexes or places of power. I usually start with this, and then we go from this to how this is reflected in the human body and where chakras are actually vortexes. Earth has chakras, you have chakras. Usually start with this book. Great book to help understand the planet, which will help you understand you. Next book is Chakras by Heidi Spear. Great book, a beginner's book on chakras and how they work. So, because we got to talk about chakras. There's 3 levels of entrainment that's happening with the egg. 1 is the sacred geometry, 2 is the sound, and 3 is the light. But they're all doing the same thing. They're all affecting your body's energetic system, your energetic grid, which is also reflected in the chakras as well. The chakras actually give you access to that energetic grid. They're like USB ports. We'll get into that. And last but not least, I would recommend not only this book, but the documentary that goes along with it called It's Time. You can get access to both of these. This is on Amazon, but the link is on the website. If you go to itstime.love, you can access the actual documentary and the book. I'm in that documentary, and I wrote a chapter in this book. The documentary was created by the Harmonic Egg inventor, Gail Lynn, and so was the book. She's the author of the book with several co-authors who were folks that was in the movie. So check this out. Great information in here about frequency medicine and the future of it and how we can actually help the body heal itself through frequency, which is what's happening in the Harmonic Egg. Great book. It's time.love. Okay. So the first thing I want to start off with is entrainment. There's 3 levels of entrainment that's happening inside the Harmonic Egg. And what entrainment is, it's the way they teach that in school in physics, right? Is that they'll say you have a room full of small grandfather clocks, right? All the pendulums are swinging and doing their own thing. You take and you put a big grandfather clock in that same room with those smaller grandfather clocks, a big grandfather clock with its own bigger pendulum. You come back in a couple of days, all the smaller grandfather clocks have synced with the bigger dominant grandfather clock. The reason why that happens is because nature wants to reach a homeostasis. Nature really doesn't want to stay in imbalance. It wants balance. So the big grandfather clock is entraining the smaller grandfather clocks because it's more dominant, right? That's the concept of entrainment. That's specifically that's called rhythmic entrainment. The same thing happens rhythmically in the body. So women witness this all the time. Men, we don't. So say you start a job and there are a bunch of women working there and they've been there for a while and all of their cycles have synced, right? You come in as the new girl and after a few weeks, your cycle syncs with theirs, right? And in that scenario, the women that are already working there, that large group that's already synced, they're in that scenario, they're the big grandfather clock. They're the dominant ones. You come in as the new girl, you're the small grandfather clock. And the next thing you know, they entrain you, and your cycle will sync with theirs. And some women witness this all the time. If they're in the house with their daughters, the cycles will sync. They'll both notice that they'll go in their cycle at the same time. Say a relative comes over, a female relative comes over, and the female in the house. Next thing you know, that relative's cycle has synced with hers if they've been there for a few months or whatever. It's something that happens in nature. Nature wants to reach a homeostasis. The way this translates in the egg, especially when it comes to the sacred geometry of the egg. That's something that I mentioned in the intro video. It's really not an egg. It's symmetrical. It looks more like a football actually because it's the same size on either side of the egg. The way that plays out though is that shape, which is called a dodecagon, creates an energetic field. It's a dominant field. It's static. It doesn't change. You, on the other hand, your energetic field is different every time you step into that egg. Every time. And I can see it because I scan most people with the bio. So I can see where you're at energetically at that moment before you get into the egg. You could have gotten off a frustrating conversation on the phone on your way into the office. And that will actually change your energy. It won't be what it was the last time you were here because you weren't on the phone, you weren't having that conversation, you weren't frustrated. And so that shows up in your stress level, that shows up in your adrenal response. I'll see all of that. If you got a little egotistical on the phone call, I'd see it in your heart chakra. Your heart chakra will be way over to the left somewhere. That's called the egoist. You're trying to have something your way. And it's temporary. It'll float back, but that's just a sign that your energetic field is malleable based on the environment you're in, or you're affected with at any given time. So when you get into the egg, the dominant field of the egg can actually adjust your energetic field in an attempt to harmonize or reach a homeostasis. And when you make changes to your field, that can affect you physically, psychologically, emotionally, mentally. In fact, things show up in your field before they show up physically. I had a hard time with that initially. And I'll never forget my Reiki therapist, Amber Poole. Shout out to Amber Poole. You can check her out. Our website is thechakradeva.com. Thechakradeva.com. You spell it exactly how it sounds, thechakradeva.com. But Amber was doing Reiki on me, and I would go to her every month. And I noticed that she kept saying, kept asking me, what's going on with your right knee? What's going on with your right knee? And there was nothing going on my right knee at that time. My knee was fine. I was doing a HIIT workout where I was doing a ton of squats and all kinds of stuff and had no issue with my knee whatsoever. She asked me this for 2 months in a row. She saw an energetic tear in my auric field right at my knee. I didn't feel anything. I was fine. So I thought. When I went to her for the third session, it was the third month now, I actually had a brace on my knee. I had a brace on my knee. I could barely walk up and down stairs. And she saw that 2 months before I felt it. And I've seen studies with this where they would look at football players and they would look for vulnerabilities in their auric field, and they knew this is more than likely where their next injury is going to occur because the field is weak in this particular area. It could be the ankle, it could be the shin. They could see this on bioenergetic scanners, similar to the one I have here called the BioWell. They could literally almost predict where the next injury would more than likely occur because there was a weakness there. So I witnessed this myself. She saw the tear. I didn't feel a thing. It took 3 months for me to feel the pain there, and actually enough to actually have a brace put on my right knee. So in the egg, the concept, at least, and I'm strictly talking about the sacred geometry right now. I haven't even gotten to the sound in the light yet. All of that happens at the same time. 3 levels of entrainment at the same time in the harmonic egg. So in the harmonic egg, we're actually addressing the issue at the energetic level, right? So what that means is if the problem is at the energetic level, even sometimes before you're feeling it physically, we can actually address the problem at the energetic level and allow the fix for the problem to trickle down back into the physical. And that's basically what we're doing in the harmonic egg. The correction is happening at the energetic level, and that trickles down to the physical level. And that's just the shape alone. I have people that I'll put in the egg, and they can feel the energy of the egg, and they can feel the harmonizing happening immediately before I even turn on the lights or the sound. I put some people in the chair inside the egg, and they'll just start weeping immediately. They can feel the changes happening to their energetic field, and it starts to affect them emotionally. Some people mentally, they may get nervous because they feel the change happening in real time. And I haven't even turned on the lights, the sound. I haven't closed the door. I even have some people say they can feel it on their way to the office, which is really wild. But I've had a few people, actually, probably a handful of people, that said that they could feel the energy of the egg as they were approaching the office. Um, Same thing for remote sessions. We'll get into that when we talk about remote sessions. But in a nutshell, that's what's happening just with the geometry itself. The geometry actually brings in a particular energetic field. In my old office, I used to have a yoga studio that was two doors down, and I had women who would go to the yoga studio, and they would tell me that they would wave hi to my egg in the morning because it sat in the front of the office in the window, so you could see it. It was sitting right there. They said they would wave hi to it because they could feel the energy of the egg as they walked past it. I even had birds. Uh, my transition into my doorway in my old office was metal. There's a metal transition plate there on the exterior door. These little wrens would chip away at the metal. I didn't know wrens could actually break metal. And this was aluminum. With their beaks, they were trying to get in my office. I had a keto dojo right next door to me. Their door was probably about a foot and a half away from my door, untouched. Same type of metal transition, aluminum transition, untouched by the birds. They were literally trying to bore their way under my door to get into my office and get closer to the egg. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen, but it was expensive because I stopped replacing the transitions because they would eat away at it again. One time I went to my office late at night, and I noticed this group of kids was sitting on the curb in front of my office. They just like hanging out there. It's just like 11:30 at night. And just one day I had to run back to the office and get something. And I realized my office is like the new hangout. They just like hanging out in front of the egg. I think they could feel something. And there's been plenty of times where people would just walk through my door and like something just drew me in here. What is that thing? They could feel that energy. It was almost like it was calling them. It was weird. But that is the energy of the harmonic egg in that shape, that decagon. It commands attention, and it has a field of itself. Many people will tell you that they greet it like it's an actual person when they come into the office and when they leave the office. They say hello, they say goodbye to Saber. Um, the next level of entrainment is its sound. So here's where the chakras come in a more specific way. So every chakra in the body corresponds to a particular frequency that translates to a particular note when it comes to music. It translates into a particular color when it comes to light. But we're going to talk about music and sound first. So each chakra, like I said, corresponds to a different musical note, right? So, for instance, your root chakra corresponds to the musical note C. So, if you ever see people use tuning forks or singing bowls, they'll take a singing bowl that's tuned to the note C, and then they will play that and vibrate that right at the root chakra. And what that's doing is, in that particular scenario, the singing bowl is the big grandfather clock, It's dominant. It's a dominant frequency. C is going to be C. It's not going to change to any other note. And the actual root chakra itself is the small grandfather clock being entrained by the actual singing bowl or tuning fork that's tuned to the note C. And what that's doing is the chakra can't hear. So the chakra doesn't hear the sound, but what the chakra is responding to is the frequency at which the air molecules that are being vibrated from the tuning fork or the singing bowl, the frequency at which the air molecules are bombarding that chakra. Audibly, we call that frequency C. But all it really is, and all sound really is air molecules vibrating at a certain frequency. If we took all the air out of a room, you wouldn't be able to hear the other person talk because there's nothing to propagate. There's nothing to move the eardrum. So if I'm speaking to you, all I'm doing is moving air molecules. They're pressing up against your eardrum, and that's sending an electrical signal to the brain that says, he said hello. That's what's actually happening mechanically. And so the chakra is responding to the frequency of those air molecules. And it's like, that's the frequency I'm supposed to be in. Let me fix myself. Let me harmonize. Right? So that's what's happening there. And when it comes to light, it's very similar. It's all frequency. It's the frequency at which photons are bombarding a particular chakra. So if we use the root chakra for an example, the color of light that actually helps to harmonize the root chakra is red, right? And all that really is photons vibrating at a particular frequency. Us as humans, we see that color as red, right? Another animal may see that as a different color. That's just the color we see it as humans. But again, the chakra can't see. It's responding to the frequency at which the photons are bombarding the chakra, and it knows, that's the frequency I'm supposed to be at. Let me harmonize with that. Let me learn from that. And that's what entrainment really is. And that's all. Entrainment is just that. It's something that's out of balance, using something that's in balance to actually learn from it. Even happens at a biological level. If you break a bone or if you cut yourself, we get it close together, right? So you take the bones and you set them. The doctor will set them. It'll get them close together, and the unhealthy cells will learn from the healthy cells and go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be. Cells just need direction. Cells just need to know what they need to be, right? So if it's a damaged cell, it's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be a bone, because this guy sitting next to me is a bone. So I'm going to be a bone just like him. And that's what stitches those cells together. The healthy ones are entraining the unhealthy ones. Same thing with a cut. That's why we stitch it together and get it close. So the healthy cells can learn and be entrained by the unhealthy cells can learn and be entrained by the healthy cells. They're learning from them, and that's how they stitch themselves back together. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be flesh on top of your wrist that you just cut. The cells can get that information from another cell, and they learn, and then they actually form what they're supposed to be. So that's what cells need, direction. And frequency can actually help with that as well. Because again, we're starting at the energetic level, but ultimately that's going to trickle down to the actual physical level on the body. And it's all about frequency. Even crystals, if you ever seen someone do crystal Reiki, right? We can stick with the root chakra, right? So they may get a crystal that holds the vibration of the root chakra. And that could be like a red jasper or bloodstone. And again, it's frequency. All crystals are vibrating. They may look still, but they're vibrating. Everything's vibrating. Even we are. Everything is in motion, right? So they're vibrating, and it's vibrating at the frequency that matches the frequency that the root chakra is supposed to be at. So your root chakra may have some imbalances, right? So you can use things, whether it's sound, the frequency of sound, the frequency of light, or the frequency of a crystal, to entrain that chakra so that it can actually realign the frequency to be closer to what it should be at. And then that will help everything that chakra governs. So in the root chakra, it could be, your large intestines, the lower spine. These are things that are governed by that root chakra. These are the physical things that if you work with that energy center called the root chakra, um, it will help to put those things back in balance, things that it governs. And we're going to get into chakras a bit more. I'm kind of talking about chakras kind of freely right now, but I'll get into chakras. I just want to get the understanding of frequency and how chakras respond to frequency. I wanted to get into that as it pertains to sound, light, and and other frequencies, even crystals, right? So in the harmonic egg, when we're dealing with sound, we're not really dealing with just like the tone C, right? So if I was working on the root chakra, we have compositions that are in the key of C that will have the same effect. But that actually, since it's a composition, it allows us to add other instruments that may be in that key, but those instruments have certain characteristics that can help with other things as well. So not just the root chakra, but it may be a string instrument, which may be good for the heart chakra. So we can combine things in terms of characteristics of actual instruments and their waveform characteristics as they pertain to even certain organs or certain chakras, or even the types of instruments, whether it's a wood instrument or um, some metal instruments, right? They're good for the lungs and the large intestines and even the sinuses. So we can be addressing sinuses, large intestines, lungs, and at the same time, the track could be in the key of C, and it's actually helping out with the root chakra at the same time. So this is how we can play with sound and certain instruments and incorporating some Chinese medicine. The fact that metal is for the lungs, that's a Chinese medicine thing. That the metal element, the lungs are the metal element, the sinuses is the metal element, the large intestines, the metal element, right? So we use instruments that are actually made of metal, gongs, uh, bells, cymbals, harmonicas, things that are physically made out of the element metal, the element water. That again is a part of Chinese medicine. So that's actually helping with certain chakras. So, for instance, the sacral chakra, the element for the sacral chakra is water. So, if we want to work on the sacral chakra, we can work on the note D, or we can actually work on the element for the sacral chakra, which is water. Or we can use the color of the sacral chakra, which is orange. So we can use these in combination to address the chakras, whether it's a Chinese element, a note, or color, or even sometimes a particular type of instrument, right? So this is how entrainment is working into the harmonic egg to manipulate the field. And really what it's doing is it's giving suggestions to the field. The field will interpret those suggestions for the next 5 to 7 days. That's the integration period for the harmonic egg. It takes the body time to actually process that information or that conversation that it just had inside the harmonic egg. But some people feel things as soon as they step out. Most people, especially if there's some detox involved, they may detox for a couple of days. Then the body, it'll start to trickle down to the body as it integrates into the body and it understands that conversation that it just had, and from a frequency standpoint inside the harmonic egg. Um, so when it comes to chakras, right? I use the word field a lot, but what I want you to understand is that we can target certain chakras to gain access to other parts of the actual field. One of the reasons why I use this book, Geomancy, is to help people understand electromagnetic fields and how we've understood this since ancient times, right? And then how that translates to the human body's electromagnetic field, because we are electromagnetic beings. So the earth has a toroidal, and what toroid means is just comes in from the top and comes down and comes back in. Looks like an apple. The actual growth pattern of an apple is a perfect example of a toroidal field. That's why the apple dips at the top and dips at the bottom. In fact, they say the earth looks like that. The earth is not completely round. It kind of dips at the top and dips at the bottom. And it's like a magnet. That's why you have a north and south pole, just like any other magnet. And there are magnetic lines of flux that go out from the north and go back in through the south. And they cover the earth like a ball of yarn, right? We call them ley lines. If you ever hear people say the lay of the land, that's what they're talking about. These ley lines are the magnetic lines of flux that go all around the earth that we can't see. These are the same magnetic lines of flux that homing pigeons use. They have magnetic particles in their noses that allow them to find a particular ley line and actually trace it to get from one place to the other. Lobsters do it at the bottom of the ocean with their little tentacles. I've seen them do lab experiments where they'll put a lobster in a tank and they'll superimpose a north and south pole image on top of the tank, and they'll adjust what north and south is, and the lobster will just turn and align itself to true north or true south because of the tentacles. That's how they travel at the bottom of the ocean in complete darkness. They're actually using the magnetic lines of flux on the earth to find out where they're going. And birds do it all the time. So where those magnetic lines of flux cross is where you have your major and minor vortexes all over the planet. And these are places of power, or places where the veil is thin. That's why if you would go somewhere like the Bermuda Triangle, that's one of the vortexes, your compass would just spin around in circles because there's no true north and south there. It's a place where these major vortex lines cross, and they say the veil is thin. You can look at it as like a USB port, right? So that's somewhere you can plug into, and it can actually connect you to another place or another portal or another vortex on the planet because you're accessing the entire field. The body has the same thing. We have major and minor chakras. We have over 120 some chakras throughout our body. We normally just cover the major ones that go up and down the spine. Those are your major 7 chakras. Some are even off of your body. They're like, a couple feet above, a couple feet below. Like your Earth Star chakra is actually about 3 feet below your feet. So when you're walking around, your Earth Star chakra is dragging in the ground 3 feet below you as you walk around on the planet. So that's something to think about, right? So the chakra system in the planet is pretty much a mirror of what happens in the body. And so what this book covers is how it's used. A lot of major cathedrals are on these places of power. And a lot of times in colonial times, when they would take over a particular people's land, one of the first things when they sent the missionaries in, the first thing they would ask them is, where do you worship? Because they knew the people already knew where the places of power were. So they would ask them where they worship, and they'd tear it down, and they'd put a church there to actually gain access to that power from the earth's grid. And this is all about this. It tells you about all the cathedrals, all the stuff all throughout Europe. And I talk about that just so, and it's called geomancy, by the way. Geo just means earth, mancy means magic. So basically this means earth magic, right? That's all that means, geomancy. But it's very scientific in terms of talking about the magnetic ley lines all over the planet. And they're everywhere. There's a tour that they do, and I've taken my kids on this tour. It's called Egypt on the Potomac. And they do it in DC from like May to October. And you can just Google Egypt on the Potomac. And one of the first things they talk about is the ley lines on the planet. In DC. The tour starts at Meridian Park, right on 16th Street, because 16th Street is a major ley line or meridian in DC. It's the spiritual center of the city. It's the meridian, runs right into the White House. So when the sun's on one side of 16th Street, that's AM. At noon, it's over top of the White House, And then when it's on the other side, it's PM. It's the meridian, the spiritual center. This is why you have all your major synagogues, major cathedrals on 16th Street. I think the York and Scottish Rite Masonic temples are on 16th Street. It's the spiritual center of the city, but because it's a major ley line, which is a place of power. That's why Meridian Park is called Meridian Park. It used to be called Malcolm X Park, but now it's called Meridian Park. There's a lot of Egyptian stuff there in that park, and they do a very thorough tour of that park, just to have you understand that it wasn't arbitrary that our capital was put at that particular spot. It's taking advantage of some very powerful ley line crossings and vortexes um, at what we call Washington D.C. right now, the District of Columbia. So you see it everywhere, and there you can look at them as chakras. You know, that's a chakra center, it's a power center. And so you have chakras in your body, which are power centers. Uh, Even boxers know the importance of chakras. You hear some boxers know where your solar plexus is, and they know, and especially in martial arts, they know if you strike somebody the right way in their solar plexus, you can take them out because they know that's your power source. That's your sun, your solar plexus. That's actually taught in some martial arts, you know, in terms of a powerful place to access to take somebody down quickly in the solar plexus area. So that's what's happening in the harmonic egg, making slight adjustments, suggestions in the field that will trickle down into the physical body, the mental body, and the emotional body, to actually help a person heal themselves. And that's what's happening. The egg's not healing you. The egg is giving you a pep talk, and your body's taking that information and running with it to go heal itself. No different than when you break your leg and the doctor sets your bones. The doctor doesn't stitch the bones together. The doctor puts the bones together so the suggestions can happen from the healthy cells and the unhealthy cells, and he tells you to go get some rest. Your body knows how to take it from there and actually stitch those bones together and integrate that suggestion. Putting the bone close together and putting and setting it is the suggestion. The body knows what to do with that suggestion, and that's how you heal. And that's how the egg works. So we never say we're healing anybody. You are healing yourself. The body is intelligent. It just needs a pep talk sometimes. You know, and that's essentially what the harmonic egg is doing. So we're about 22 minutes in. I don't want to make this too long. This is New Year's Eve. I'm recording this. I said I would get another video in before the end of the year. So here we are. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, a new year of love, life, lessons, and prosperity to everybody. Remember, you are unstoppable. No one can stop you but you. Do not dim your light for anyone. The earth needs your light. Don't be shy. Don't dim your light. Love yourself. Happy New Year.